Welcome to another episode of 3x3 Hustle Hype, and I'm absolutely thrilled and pumped to introduce my next guest, 3x3 Australian teammate, and that is 3x3 superstar Tim Coenraad. How are we doing, mate?
Doing really well, mate. Doing really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I could clearly
really
see
well.
with the significant facial hair growth,
The whiskers.
that isolation has allowed you to go away from the grain, the norm.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it. What's the reasoning?
Look,
Pure laziness?
I've never grown it before. I've never seen the potential that I could have had with some facial hair. It's not great, It's better. It's better than I thought it was going to be. But the deal with the missus was that if I grew my beard, I wasn't allowed to shave my head. Hence the hat, because my hair is pure filth.
I feel like that's the case for a lot of us. I mean, I am, prior to going my last hustle event with yourself, I'm starting to bring back the long hair, as you can see.
Yeah.
I've got these wings, or whatever you may call it. So, and unfortunately, I can't grow any facial hair, so I'll have to admire yours from afar. But it's all good, mate. We'll talk about, I guess, isolation, and we'll go. Knowing you personally, played alongside it, there's no issue with your motivation in terms of staying in good nick. I mean, how have you, we've seen that in terms of setting yourself some little goals about standing 2 foot dunk, which I think you got it done. But talk to me about how, the initial, realization, geez, I'm in isolation to now.
It's, going into it kind of went through phases with me, I guess, when I realized I wasn't going to have access to a basketball court and the gym that we usually work out in here. I was lucky enough that I'd actually already put together a little home gym. I've got a decent chin-up bar, a lot of kettlebells, some parallel bars, that sort of stuff. So I just try and keep it as simple as possible and just do rounds of stuff, doing a lot of sprinting, a lot of jump work, just body weight sort of movement stuff, just trying to stay in good nick. The last couple of weeks with the restrictions being lifted, we've been doing some on-court stuff at a court out here in Illawarra, just, getting up and down, getting shots up, that sort of thing. So it's been pretty good for me because I've had more time on my hands. Obviously, we're doing some home improvement stuff around the house like everyone has been. But, it's staying in shape's never really been too much of an issue for me. I just, you got to treat it like a lifestyle. It's got to be a hobby, not a chore, So just being able to play around with different things and, experiment. I like doing that kind of stuff. It's a hobby of mine. So, staying in good nick is good for business, and it's just good for health in general.
Little fella as well. It's been cool watching him grow up. How's that been? I mean, we just spoke off air. It's funny, like, I've loved isolation because I've been able to have this time with the kids that I never would have been able to do unless you take 8 weeks off work. But talk to me how that's been.
Yeah, look, I know it's affected everyone differently, and I've got a lot of sympathy for the people that it has affected hard. But for me personally, it's been a real blessing in disguise. I think it's been like that for a fair few people as well. I've had a chance to be home, wake up with him. My usual schedule is to wake up and I'm out of the house before he wakes up. And some days I'm not home until he's in bed, But now I'm able to wake up with him. We get to spend that cool time in the morning. Then I've been doing a few one-on-one sessions out the front of my house. And then I get to come back with him, spend more time. I'm here throughout the day. It's been a real good time for me because he's gone from, he's in that period now where he's 16 months, he was 15, he's coming into that where he's starting to get that personality and he's starting to move around a lot more. And I've been here for that whole time. And like we were speaking before, I would have been in Bendigo, away from the fam. And it's been such, like I said, a blessing in disguise to see him grow. And he loves basketball, which is great. I think we got 10 hoops in our house at the moment that we've put together. So, it's like I said, man, it's been a great time for me.
Sure. Love it. Mate, I want to talk about how you got into 3x3. Obviously relatively new, I think 2 years now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, how did it all start for people? I mean, who gave you that call? Hey, let's fly over that and your experiences thus far.
Yeah, well, the first one, it was Tim Keating, one of my teammates that I played with. He plays for the Townsville team. And he messaged me just asking if I was interested. And at the time, they were having that tournament in Sydney with that great backdrop, out at the overseas passenger terminal. And there was potential to win prize money, and me and my wife made like a day trip of it. So yeah, the first game we played a Chinese team, and it was just trial by fire straight away. And,
so was that the Challenger then?
No, it wasn't the Challenger. It was the Hustle event before.
Yeah, okay.
So we, that first game, we only ended up having 3 guys. The 4th guy pulled out. So three guys all day.
I love that.
Yeah, it was obviously the engine gets tested pretty quick, and you go through that same kind of 1-2 game process that most people do when they start. It's like you think people are trying to start fights with you, and then the guys Tim Keating was saying to me after we won that first game, thankfully, but he was just saying, look, mate, that's just how it is. It's a lot more physical. At the time they hadn't cleaned it up like they have recently with screening and all that. So it was pretty much, a little bit of Greco-Roman with a bit of basketball thrown in. So it was a good tournament. We ended up doing pretty well for having 3 guys. We made it to the semi-finals. We were knocked out by Tommy Wright and Andrew Steele in their athletic team. So that was my only experience with it, and I loved it straight away, but didn't have many other opportunities to play that season. So come that next 3x3 season is when I really started I did all the challenges with Townsville and Tim Keating, and all the hustle events with Tim Keating and the Townsville team, and went overseas a few times to the Philippines and Mongolia. She was checking it out and realized how massive it was, and it was just like the game. I think it just suited me really well from the get go, and you don't have to be as fast, which is great because the physicality kind of stops that kind of quickness. And I just thought I molded to it real well. And then once you start learning more of it, it really, you just fall in love with it. So it was good for me, and it was good timing, and it's been great. We've gotten to represent our country, which, like I keep saying, is the tippy top for me.
We're going to touch on that. I want to, we'll focus on the hustle events as such. I mean, obviously you're with, and how have you felt those experiences have been? Obviously, you played the Sydney Challenge, and then the last year, I remember in Geelong, I think you got a big win, right, against who ended up the Waxy's team, and sort of surprising them. I mean, how was that? And then even obviously this year we had Moomba, and then a very interesting Grand Prix event due to COVID, but. Talk to me, like, how have you seen the growth of the hustle, or even like, you touched on the refereeing and all that sort of stuff. I mean, even in my short time, Geelong and Moomba, I saw genuine progression of that. I mean, you've obviously played a little bit longer for me. How have you seen that?
Yeah, it's I think different areas of the world it's physical, but for Australia, I was actually had like a lot of conversations with the rest because it's a different environment. I like to think about it like the when you're back in under 12s and you're at a tournament, you got all the teams just hanging out, and the refs are there, the players are there, they're all kind of mingled in together. So you get to have chats, and like some of the refs are really keen for your input, which is nice. I mean, it's not necessarily they're not going to take it on board all the time, but it's really from that first hustle event to the one that we played in Grand Prix, or even the Moomba one. You can see that there's key points that they're trying to bring on to stop that I guess it's the bad kind of physicality, the holding, the jersey swinging and all that. That stuff they're really trying to tidy up while still maintaining the grassroots of the physicality that you're allowed to have on the basketball. So I think they've kind of found that Goldilocks point now where it's seen as being tough and seen as being physical, but not going to that crazy point where you see in some of the Philippine tournaments that I'm sure you've experienced as well. I think you went to one as well. You see Absolutely. How much more physical it's there, whereas Australia is trying to adopt the more international version of that, where it's going to be in the Olympics. You know what I mean? So Absolutely. I think it's been a great transition in terms of where the game's going. in Australia. You know, like again, we're still new to it. You know what I mean? We're talking about it like we know it, but really, we've only been playing in such a short period of time. You know, so it's good. It's moving in the right direction. Just hopefully it can pick back up after this COVID experience.
Oh, before we get onto the Australian big 2019, I want to talk to you about how you're exactly right. You suited to the 3x3 game. You had a bit of a really good few bumps. Your very first Boomers mission, if I'm correct. So not mission, but getting brought into the selection. Sorry, to then going over for World Cup qualifiers. And you had obviously a massive campaign, and you're a confident sort of guy. We see that, a couple of years ago playing in the grand final series, that first semi-final series, you were rolling. But how have you felt 3x3? I spoke about it with Beck last week, was regarding playing well in 3x3 and finding a different element, and how that helped you transition to year with the Hawks.
Yeah, like what I've mentioned in the past is that I never really got, when I was younger, a chance to play any kind of real physical sport. I never played any footy. My mum wouldn't let me play anything with an oval ball just because she thought I might get hurt. So I never got to play Aussie rules footy or, NRL or, any kind of stuff like that. And I feel like that kind of point for a kid playing those sports is good for him. He learns how to handle contact. He learns how to use his body against someone else's. He learns how, to distribute weight back and forth when someone's hitting you, and I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, you had a bit of a footy background, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see the way that you rebound the basketball, that you've got a nose for it. And I think that nose for developing that nose for the ball comes from that constant footy background and that having to read where the ball's going, you know what I mean? And I never got that. So in terms of the physicality side of things, 3x3's kind of developed my game as you have to be strong with the ball when you're driving, or else you're just going to lose it. People are going to smack it out of your hand, or as you take a bump, it's going to pop out. So just learning how to deal with those bumps, and again, down in the low post, a lot more physical. You need to learn how to use your body and use people's weight against them. So for me, I think it's helped me deal with physicality a lot better. And you can be a little bit more physical in 3x3. So on the ball, I feel like I'm a lot stronger, than I am in a 5-on-5 situation where you're probably going to get called for that foul. So I think it suits me in that way as well, but it's just handling that level of physicality and at the same time being able to shoot the basketball when you're tired. I think you were saying that we should have, one of the drills should be, we should need to wrestle each other for 30 seconds and then go get shots up, which I think would be a perfect drill for 3x3, because no matter what, fatigue, makes cowards of us all, and you've got to be able to make shots when you're tired or you're not going to win.
Absolutely. Mate, let's go and take us, and obviously I shared the journey with you in 2019 for the national team. And I mean, it all started with that national camp in Melbourne just after the NBL finals campaign. I mean,
yeah.
Talk to me about that. We got two very contrasting experiences of our national camp. You were in a lot better nick than I was. So it may have been better preparation. But talk to me about that, and then maybe that realization, obviously, the selection camp, and I think we're talking about to get across the world qualifiers. Was that your first foray into going, like, this is something that I really want to put a lot of time into?
Yeah, it was. For me, it's all just so new and exciting. It's and you say, like, because right now there's not a lot of guys throwing themselves into this. Like, there's not a lot of pull for the Australian. Like, if everyone that was, say, playing NBL will have a crack at this, there'll be a lot of people that will come out of the woodwork really suited for this game. But as of right now, it's new, and I was just, when I came into that camp, I just kind of felt this excitement in the air. And when you see, even when you just see the uniforms and things say Australia, you know what I mean, it kind of just, you get that sense of this is really special. And that training, obviously you just come off a finals campaign, so you were just coming off a bender going into that first training session.
Wasn't ideal, that's for sure.
Wasn't ideal, no, not at all. But I could sense from the first time that you played that you each team needs certain things. They don't need four guys that can all just shoot the ball. You know what I mean? And I thought with playing with you and against you in that tournament, I felt like, man, this guy's going to get me so many more shots just because of that nose you have for the ball. You know, you could see that every time some guy put a shot up, you were just getting into position, getting the ball, you kick it back out. And being on with you, you'd be able to get that. I'm usually the one having to try and box you out in 5-on-5, which is a freaking nightmare. Now you're getting the ball and throwing it back out to me. I'm like, this is heaven. I just got to roam this perimeter, and Greg's going to get a board and find me. So, you know, we got to kind of know each other's game a little bit more, and you know, we got to see, like, you know, Waxy and Steelo and Tommy over the time, and I thought though the bond that we had was pretty special. I really enjoyed my time with you guys, and it all started at that camp where Dave just kind of threw us in the deep end in terms of the conditioning, and it worked out really well. I thought it was good timing for us, and I thought we gelled pretty well from the get-go.
Absolutely, and we transitioned to Puerto Rico. Yeah, have that camp. I guess the nervousness about, are we going to make it, or whatever it may be, and then I want to, because we would share similar experiences. Like, I mean, NBL, you don't travel luxurious by any means. But I mean, let's talk Puerto Rico. Like, we, you know, like, and I think Australian men have never represented Australia. Men have never represented Australia at the World Cup. And obviously we had, that with the goal of going to the Olympics, obviously. But talk to me about that, Puerto Rico. I mean, I watched that clip, especially that last game where Steelo, to give a little bit of context, was playing with a torn groin for a moment. But talk to me about that, like the very first, you know, that experience where we went against Puerto Rico, host country, you know, losing that to then, losing them against them, and then backing up Czech Republic, and that emotion. It was obviously pretty cool to see your partner's family there as well. Talk to me about that whole emotion when we spoke about the pride and wearing, the country's colours, but that whole experience.
Yeah, no, look, that was for me one of the most memorable moments, I think, that in my sporting career. Just because of the way we did it too. In that last day, we did it tough. I mean, we were playing almost back to back, 4 games almost with a game's break. And like you said, Steelo going down, we had to play against Puerto Rico in Puerto Rico with 3 guys in that semi-final, and that was an insane atmosphere. And I mean, obviously we were going to be on the back foot that whole game, but, you know, I think you get a sense of, you know, how much your teammates are going to fight for you in those positions. And the fight that we put up was sensational. I mean, even though we didn't get the win, I think it was 17-21 in the end. You could tell we genuinely left everything out on the floor. And I think we were fairly unknown going into that. I think a lot of those teams knew each other fairly well. They knew what to expect, but we were pretty new to it at the time. So people didn't really have a scout on us or anything like that. But then after that Puerto Rico semi-final, having to pick ourselves back up after that 4th game of the day, having only 3 guys for almost 2 of those games, and then ended up getting that win to get the berth to the World Cup. It was just like, it was just something that when you win something easy, it's not quite as sweet, but when you put in that kind of effort and you come out with what you wanted, the feeling is quite sensational, you know. And at the end, it was just a complete like unleash of emotions for me, because it was like, you look down, I've got green and gold on my chest. We're going to the World Cup for the first time, and you know what it is. You're just on cloud 9 for a little while. It was fantastic.
And I got goosebumps because it is like, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to achieve that success as a professional athlete many times, but you can't replicate it irrespective of any level. And obviously you were able to do it with the Boomers then, but to do it, and I think that's what 3x3 does as well. It's such a close knit unit. Like we literally got to an airport, we flew in, arrived, 2 days prior. Well, got into a hotel at 1 o'clock in the morning. Had a training session, where we played. Who did we play against?
It's Italy.
Yeah, right. Just running around though, but because it was raining, we couldn't really use the courts. You didn't have that warm up, and you felt like you're underdone in a way, but then the very first game we're rolling. I think we played Czech first up, or ended up playing them later on. But yeah, you're completely right. And I remember one of my favourite memories. Obviously, one Steelo giving us 3 or 4 huge possessions with a torn groin. But then I remember even that you post match, showing your emotion. It was massive. Asia Cup, obviously another really, really fun time. Winning that gold, that was obviously highlight. I think it just got shown. It was pretty cool to see. I always love the celebrations, but even seeing stuff afterwards, Waxy going to our coach Dave and giving him some
a big
some
high 10. You don't usually see the high 10. You don't see the high 10 that too much.
And the girls and guys coming together, but obviously winning a medal. I'll argue if any, 3x3, 5-on-5, medal, whatever. Like, you can't take that away. Talk to me about that.
No. Yeah, look, that was really my first win in 3x3. You know what I mean? Winning the whole tournament, World Cup qualifier, we won third place. You know what I mean? So that was my first win, for a 3x3 event, and to have the medal and to compete against that Asia's finest, and I think the way we did it as well, when that first game was a bit rocky, we were just getting together with Waxy, but from that first game, every game after that was just, we were all on the same page. It was a real special time, and we some teams we weren't really expected to beat, we beat, teams that have been in it for a lot longer than we have, we beat, and I just think we showed the potential that we have moving forward. And obviously it's amazing to win a medal for your country, and I've got all that framed right behind me here. That's going to stick with me forever. And not only that, but the group of guys that we had, those group of 5 guys that have represented Australia for us, with Waxy, Steelo, Tommy, you and me, that you couldn't ask for a group of better teammates. I think they just, off the court everything's sweet, on the court everything's sweeter. It's and you almost want to keep that band together. You know what I mean? You don't want that to go away. And I know we got to play a little bit more, World Cup and then Mumba and all that. But when all this sort of stopped, I was really looking forward to keep playing, because we were really getting on a roll right then.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I have to touch on that, the negative experience that comes with the World Cup. Obviously went in there and we fell well short of our goal. And it's just like 3x3. It's a couple of possessions, on both sides. With, I'd be honest in saying, Poland, you look at it and a couple of possessions here and there. And first time maybe in my 3x3 sort of against Latvia, I just felt like we just got completely beat by a well-experienced team playing great basketball, and irrespective, how many times we go, we just need to change that. That's the first time I've ever been humbled on the court, and I just was like, we really had nothing. They were just rolling, and showed by their bronze medal beating Serbia. I mean, talk to me about that. The success, we finally get there. We were up there for a while, and then, the unfortunate.
No.
We're out of the pool. I mean, I've still got a bit of taste about it now, and obviously we'll talk more so, and then you can touch on disappointment of missing out Olympics.
No, I feel like that second game against Poland was really that was one that I thought, because we came out on a really hot start, and I always have that taste in my mouth about that game in particular, because I know I missed a few looks that I'm usually used to making, and when they don't go down, it's and then you end up losing by a narrow margin. It doesn't sit right with you for a while. I lost a lot of sleep over that game, and thinking back now, like you said, if you could have the time back, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But they started hitting shots. Obviously, they got Michael Hicks, who hit some crazy shots against us. I felt like if you're going to take anything away from that, even though we lost, we went up a team that's been playing for so much longer than us, that beat Serbia, that have beaten high-level teams and have won challenges. And they had a hard time with us. They didn't beat us, you know what I mean? I don't feel like they beat us. I feel like we missed some shots and some opportunities. So comparing that, being on that stage, it felt like we did belong there. It wasn't like we got run off the court. We belonged on that stage. And even though the score in the Latvia game was a little closer in the end, they just outclassed us. I feel like their experience just shone through. You know, the way they run their plays, their timing, their cutting, their physicality, knowing where to be. I feel like that was just on another level that we need to get to. And I know I watched that game a few times, just watching them and watching what they do. But I think they're a perfect example of the kind of chemistry you need to have as a team. You know, you need to have those couple playmakers, and then you need to have those guys that are just going to eat glass and be physical. You know what I mean? That balance of guys, I thought was really important, because you look at even like the USA team that won, you've got the guy that ate, like Hakeem Maddox, just an absolute beast, getting boards, playing D. Wasn't going to make an outside shot, but it doesn't matter. People place a lot of emphasis on the two, but you need guys that are going to be able to get more possessions for it. You know what I mean? So it was a good experience. Don't get me wrong, and it was good to. I mean, even though we did knock out a pool play, we had some time, you know, in Amsterdam. That was kind of fun, and it wasn't the result we wanted, and I felt like we were just really close away from what we wanted, but. It's all about growth and learning at this point.
And that's what I want to talk, because, I mean, we obviously, and it's funny, and I've been speaking at length, I see this, I mean, I think we're both very passionate in space, because we get to play for our country, which would have never been an opportunity that would have been presented to in the past. Obviously, I've transitioned out of playing professional basketball, and hopefully you've got a few more years, but we get to do this, and the fun side, and you get to experience stuff that never would have had the opportunity. Like, as you spoke about, you went to Mongolia, you know, played in the Philippines. Like, we've done all this sort of stuff that, you know, even when I tell people, I remember getting invited to a challenger last year, Mongolia, and I was like, oh, am I actually considering going to Mongolia? Like, of all places, like, that's a laugh. But I want to talk to you about this. Like, I mean, and it is COVID is sort of, I want to talk to you about from a pathways perspective, and what your suggestions, recommendations. I mean, what would you like to be seen done? Because I see this as 3x3 at a junior standpoint. Like, I voiced this. I don't understand why Australia don't have representation on under 18 and 23 level, because like, for me, 3x3 can be seen as a supplementary training tool. Like, it shouldn't be seen as a competitor to 5-on-5. Like, the beautiful thing about 3x3 is you can't hide on the court, you know, whereas 5-on-5, you're a role player in essence, unless you're Bryce Cotton, you know. So, like, why can you not use 3x3 to you know, as a training method to get better on the court? So I want to ask you, what are your ambitions? I mean, would you like to see? I mean, obviously with Olympics ruled out, unless somehow FIBA just say, we'd like the Asian Cup champions to be involved, which I would love, but I don't think that's the case. But what are your ambitions? What would you like to see done for 3x3 basketball in Australia?
Well, you're right when you say we need to develop a pathway, because I might be a little bit naive in saying this, but I just see more basketball as a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, more opportunities for kids to play. Like, kids that may not have been recognised in 5-on-5 and may not have the certain skills can use 3x3 and still be successful. Like, I can think of a lot of guys that may not be as successful in 5-on-5. I think, if from memory, Dusan Bulut, like the world's #1 player for a while, he was a Division 2 5-on-5 player, not really get much traction. And he comes out to 3x3, his skills transfer perfectly, and all of a sudden he's a world figure. You know, I mean, just an example like that. I mean, you know, if a kid has an opportunity to do that, I think that's a perfect pathway. And I wanted to see it on the junior level put into like some sort of tournament play, where you do have kind of like, you know, like you have a weekend where it's Saturday, Sunday for the kids or something like that, where, you know, they play a certain amount of games, and, you know, you win tournaments each weekend and then move on and then win again. You know, the pathways are going to have to need some tweaking to get it right. Don't get me wrong, but you need to have that transition coming into, because this is like, I don't think people really realize it. It's an Olympic sport now. This needs to be treated seriously. This isn't a street ball thing anymore. This isn't just some hyped up, you know, glorified sport. This is in the Olympics. It's got a World Cup. It's got Asia Cup. It's got Euro Cup. You know, it's a legitimate sport now, and it needs to be treated that way. And I think I said this, when I found out we may not be going to the Asia Cup, I'm like, for me, that's like someone taking away my ability to represent my country when it's right there for us to do. Now, I'm not, I know there's got people that have been doing this for longer than me. They've been involved in junior sports and the pathways in a long time. So whoever those people are need to get together and hash this out, because this needs to happen. It's too good a sport just to give up. And I like what Hustle's doing with the community hustle and having ambassadors. I think that's a good step forward, getting us out there, getting the name of the sport out there. But we need to have the legitimate pathways that go through the under 18 ranks, that go through, so you can send an under 18 Australian team to the World Cup of, they can send I think it's under 18s. There's under 20 something.
23s, yeah.
23s, that's right. So you can send under 23 guys to these cups. I mean, this is great opportunities for kids, opportunities that they might not get in 5-on-5, just like myself, just like you. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
I mean, this sport, I might, again, it might be a naive perspective, but this sport has given me the ability to represent my country and win. And there's no better feeling than that. We've won an Asia Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you how, I don't think this is the biggest thing, and we've got some names, and not discrediting the names of Tommy Wright and Andrew Steele, because they've shown that they, at that level. But how would you go about attracting NBL level talent? We obviously see it from the WNBL, like I saw that with the Moomba Festival. You've got 4 teams and they've WNBL players across the board, but and we've seen it with a couple of Hustle events. It would have grown this year, but how would you go about attracting NBL talent? Obviously we've seen the success of you, and don't invite too many guys because I don't want to get bumped. But how would you suggest to attract that high level talent? And even from a state guy thinking about under 18s, you're right. It's not a street ball thing; it's a concept. But what would be your advice?
Look, for right now, my advice to a state kid is just, the thing is, you can't really get involved into, there's not enough to go around. You know what I mean? It's just the street hustles and that when they come up, But in terms of what I want to see, kind of how to attract those guys, at the end of the day, it all comes back to money. Because if you're a professional player and you're in your prime and you're making a good amount of money, you're having a good living, do you want to risk, the injury to go and play something where you're not really getting much reward? And even myself, I wasn't guaranteed any money. We had to win to win money, So I think we spoke of a concept, and I think you, me, and Dave maybe had a chat, or maybe Stilo and Tommy as well, about how we wanted to have a team of 6 guys. That we have a base somewhere in Europe. I think they were talking about that Netherlands training facility that we use in the World Cup, and having guys that are staying over there during the World Tour event, and 4 weeks, and then 2 guys come in, another 2 guys come out, and rotating those guys, but not having them obviously be paid for their time. It's a job, just like an NBL contract. But we've only got 6 guys, as the NBL's, got 80 plus, not 90 plus. So it's a smaller figure. It just takes that little bit of funding that we need. But it's a realistic goal for us to have a team that competes in all the world tours and goes on the world tours. Because I've seen the teams on those world tour events, and they're beatable for us. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It comes back down to experience. Yeah, you and the only way you can get experience is by playing high level competition and getting that. And even us being so separated, Tommy and Stilo, and obviously in Vic and yourself and Waxy in New South Wales, but even myself, it's a tough thing to go, cool, let's play 3x3 in WA with the talent that's here, because it's such a different game. They need to develop. I completely agree. I want to finish on this last question, and this is an interesting one. Obviously, you're still in the mix of NBL. I want to ask you, who do you think suited? If you were to play alongside 3 guys, so you can put yourself in there.
No, if I play alongside 3,
but who are you selecting as a NBL 3x3 team?
Yeah, if I'm going outside the guys that I've already played with, I think one of the names that came up was a Mitch McCarron. He's strong, he's athletic, he can play deep physicality wise. He can knock down an open shot. I think he transitions pretty well. I almost thought like a Jesse Wagstaff too, like his intelligence level, setting a hard screen, rolling, knocking down an open shot. And then the last one's a bit tricky. I know I've thought about those two in the past, just thinking that they aren't really suited to it. Am I allowed to say Bryce Cotton? Or is he not?
Not Australian as of yet.
Not yet, though, right? Not yet.
Not yet, as I know.
No, but if I had to pick another guy, I think maybe a Sunday Detch.
Mate, that was the guy I literally won the one when one of the guy. I think maybe you might have not been available initially. I reached out to Sunday, and I was
okay.
I was like, you would be suited this to a T.
Yeah. Definitely.
He's definitely going 1-on-1. So he might have an issue there, but in terms of the defensive switching and the capacity to shoot, love it, mate. Thank you so much for your time. I heard the little fella in the background, so hopefully I haven't taken too much time away from your beautiful family. But mate, appreciate that. Hopefully, as you said, the restrictions lift and we can get back to some space. I hold a glimmer of hope that we'll be able to. I hope we're able to get out of the country, but we can compete in a couple of, not every World Tour event's been cancelled, but I hope we actually have an opportunity to compete as a team this year before the NBL. Hopefully that doesn't overlap with the NBL. But to everyone else, thank you again for tuning in for this week's episode of 3x3 Hustle Hype. You can tune in every week and connect with us through all of our social media channels via Facebook, Instagram. Please tune in again. Send through anything you may have. And once again, Timmy, thanks a lot. Have a great night.
No, appreciate it, mate. Thank you.